Today I wanted to go over how you can identify EMIC waves in your sample week and other things to look out for that come up in our data sometimes that we don't want you to mark as EMIC waves. So starting with things that will come up but we don't want you to mark as EMIC waves because they're not EMIC waves are things that take on this sort of shape like V shapes or like swooping like U's. So you can see that here with this and this sort of fainter one here, and in this other day of data you can even see it here and here and here. And those are spacecraft signals, so they're not actually coming from any sort of plasma wave in the magnetosphere. Instead, they're just spacecraft interacting with the magnetometer where our data is coming from. So I'm going to show you what those sound like so you know to not mark them. So there's an example of one, and here's another example. You'll sort of notice that they take on sort of like a whoop sound, and in the second one you heard maybe there was some other whistling sounds, and I'll go over what those are in a second. But another thing we want to look out for and make sure not to mark are sort of like thumps that span the entire frequency range. So there's one right here, and I'll show you what that sounds like as well. And it kind of just sounds like a thump. And really the best way to characterize them is that you can see that it spans the entire frequency range. Those ones are a little bit trickier though, because there are also waves that we're looking for that are down in this frequency. You can even see some right here that also sound a little bit like thumps. So if you encounter one of those, it's okay to mark it as maybe unless you're very certain that it's not an EMIC wave. So now I'm going to go into what EMIC waves can sound like and some different ways to characterize them. So EMIC waves can be found at any frequency on this spectrogram. So here's an example of some low ones, and they are going to sound pretty similar to that thump there. I think they kind of sound like wind whistling, but they're also characterized often as sounding like chirps, or yeah, sort of a distant whistle. So here are some more, and you will be able to hear the spacecraft in the background of this, but here are some more mid-frequency EMIC waves. Those sound a lot more chirpy to me than the low-frequency ones. So if you hear something like that, it's likely an EMIC wave, and then I'm just going to show you some other ones on a different day. So these ones, if you're looking at a spectrogram like this, it can be kind of hard to tell what these are since it's pretty zoomed out, but if you'd like to see them closer, feel free to hit these zoom buttons, and this will kind of help you see more that these are sort of bigger bursts of EMIC waves than they initially look in the zoomed out spectrogram. So I'm going to play these for you as well, and these are again more mid-frequency EMIC waves. So again, here you're hearing whistling wind sounds or chirpy sounds. Another thing in this data, there is a lot of background noise. So an EMIC wave is sort of like a burst that will stand out from the background noise. So you should be able to identify it as sounding different than just the background static like we hear in this section. Because when an EMIC wave is introduced, like there's definitely more of like a sound added. So hopefully that will help you as you move on towards identifying. And in your week, none of these two specific days will be in it. So your EMIC waves may sound different than this. So if you find something that you think is an EMIC wave but you're not sure about, feel free to mark it as maybe. And that's perfect.